It's long been conventional wisdom that the best way to deal with bullies is to stand up to them, as seen in almost every movie about high school ever made. But the victims of alleged bully Bobby Kent did a lot more than just stand up to their tormentor. As depicted in the 2001 film Bully, they got rid of him permanently. So today we're looking back at the infamous killing of Bobby Kent. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other true crime stories you'd like to hear next. Okay, time for a chilling trip back to the early 90s. Born in Hollywood, Florida, on May 12, 1973, Bobby Khayyam was the son of Iranian immigrants Fred and Farah Khayyam, who later changed their surname to the anglicized Kent, often compared to the irritatingly insincere Leave It to Beaver character Eddie Haskell, a reference you should probably ask your great-grandparents to explain. Young Bobby was popular with adults, but not so much with other kids. That being said, he did have some friends his age. In the 3rd grade, he became close with neighbor Marty Puccio, and the two would remain tight into their teenage years. Their parents, however, had reservations about their friendship. Bobby's parents feared that Marty, a high school dropout, was a bad influence on Bobby. And Marty's parents thought of Bobby as a bully because Marty had, on several occasions, returned home bloody and bruised after spending time with Bobby. To everyone around the boys, their friendship definitely didn't seem healthy. Rumors abounded that the two gym rats were abusing steroids, and Bobby's increasing aggression didn't help dispel the notion. They also made a bizarre attempt to break into the adult film production business by convincing a middle-aged man to dance naked and play with adult toys while they filmed him. However, due to the amateurish and relatively tame nature of the film, they found themselves unable to sell it to anyone, which sort of sounds like the plot of the darkest Fairly Brothers movie. In 1993, the now 20-year-old Marty started dating 18-year-old Lisa Connolly. But the relationship was troubled from the start, as Lisa felt Marty spent too much time with Bobby. In an attempt to occupy Bobby so she could have more time with Marty, Lisa fixed him up with her 17-year-old best friend Alice Allie Willis. Still with us so far? In June of that year, Marty finally confirmed his parents' anxieties and told Lisa about the lifetime of abuse he had endured from Bobby. She, in return, told Marty that she was pregnant with his child and wanted a committed relationship, but only if Marty ended his friendship with Bobby. But Marty was reluctant because he was unsure how Bobby would handle his rejection. So he and Lisa started considering a more permanent and deadly solution to the problem. Meanwhile, Allie dumped Bobby after just a few weeks because of his alleged abuse. But on July 13, 1993, Lisa claimed that Bobby made deadly threats against Allie and the child she had from a previous relationship if she didn't resume her romance with him. That night, Lisa and Marty met with a terrified ally, her new boyfriend, Donald Seamunick, and their mutual friend, Heather Swallows, who were 17 and 18 years old, respectively. Like Allie, Donald and Heather believed Lisa's story. Despite having never even met Bobby, they agreed to help Lisa get rid of him. That same evening, Lisa, Marty, Allie, Donald, and Heather lured Bobby to a secluded area where they planned to do the deed. Marty, Donald, and Heather lost their nerve and left at the last minute, but Lisa remained determined to carry out the plan with Allie's help. The two convinced Bobby that Allie wanted to be intimate and let him drive them both to a different location in her new Mustang. Armed with a gun she stole from her mother, Lisa planned to shoot Bobby while he was distracted. But when the time came, she found herself unable to pull the trigger. But that doesn't mean she had given up on the plan. Still determined to whack Bobby that very night, Lisa and the others went to talk to a 20-year-old self-styled hitman named Derek Kaufman, who had been recommended by a friend. He was willing to take the job, but explained he couldn't get an untraceable gun that night, so it would have to wait. The crew then returned to Lisa's home, where they discussed the matter with her cousin, 19-year-old Derek Traverko, who also agreed to help. The following evening, Lisa, Marty, Allie, Donald, Heather, and both Dereks reconvened at Marty's house to make a new plan. Once they knew what they wanted to do, Marty called Bobby and lured him out by offering to race their cars, and strongly hinting Bobby would get to be intimate with Allie again. Armed with a baseball bat, lead pipe, and 2 knives, the crew picked up Bobby at his home around 11:30 m. and took him to a construction site in the nearby town of Weston. Once there, Allie and Heather lured Bobby to a secluded spot and distracted him while Donald snuck up from behind and stabbed him in the back of his neck. Then Donald, Marty, and Derek Kaufman repeatedly attacked Bobby with the knives and the baseball bat until he succumbed to his injuries. Once it was over, the group carefully erased their tire tracks and footprints from the scene and disposed of their weapons in the ocean. Bobby's body was then dumped into a marsh, where the killers hoped it would be eaten by alligators. Of course, committing the crime is the easy part. Getting away with it is much harder. Despite coming up with fake alibis, several members of the group broke down and confessed to their family members over the next few days. Among them was Allie, who anonymously reported the murder to Crime Stoppers, naming Lisa and Marty as the culprits. Meanwhile, Lisa told her mother, who told her sister, Derek Traverko's mother. Soon after that, Traverko confessed everything to the police and led them to Bobby Kent's body. The entire group was arrested and tried for the killing. Marty Puccio was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death by electrocution. However, that sentence was commuted to life in prison by the Florida Supreme Court in 1997, where Puccio remains to this day. Donald Zimanak was convicted of second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison plus another 15 years. He remains behind bars. Derek Kaufman was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to life plus 30 years. He, too, is still in prison. Lisa Connolly was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. That sentence was commuted to 22 years in 1998, and she was released in 2004 after serving 9 years. Allie Willis was convicted of second-degree murder and wound up serving 6 years in prison before being released in 2001. Derek Traverko pled guilty to second-degree murder and conspiracy and would ultimately serve 5 years before being released in 1999. Heather Swallers pled to the same crimes and ultimately served 3 years until her release in 1998. The murder of Bobby Kent would become the subject of Jim Schutz's 1997 book, Bully, a true story of high school revenge. That book would then be adapted into the 2001 crime drama, Bully, directed by Larry Clark and starring Brad Renfro, Bijou Phillips, and Nick Stoll. Rife with gratuitous violence and graphic sex scenes, the film centers on the complicated relationship between Bobby, played by Stoll, and Marty, played by Renfro. He postulates that the crime grew out of the aimless and brutal day-to-day existence of South Florida teenagers and the effects of a violent subculture of sex workers that the two may have been mixed up in. The controversial film was highly praised by Roger Ebert, though it drew mixed reviews from critics overall, who generally considered it too exploitative. Though it is ultimately a fictionalized account of the story, Allie Willis has gone on record as saying the scenes depicting the actual murder were mostly accurate to the real-life events. But Marty Puccio, who never saw it, said, "What I've heard of it's off quite a bit." Though it only received a limited theatrical release, the film impacted public opinion. In 2021, it even inspired one person to launch a change.org petition pleading for the release of Marty Puccio. That petition, as of this recording, has collected over 1,700 signatures. Since being released from prison, Allee Willis has expressed some remorse about her role in the crime. At the same time, she also claimed she didn't know the group was planning to whack Bobby Kent, even telling the story on an episode of Dr. Drew's Life Changers. She, along with Lisa Connolly, Derek Sverko, and Heather Swallers, are now living relatively quiet lives out of the public eye. As for Bobby Kent, he was cremated and his ashes were scattered in an undisclosed location. So, what do you think? Was justice served in the case of Bobby Kent? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.